starting in web development in 2024 can be quite overwhelming, especially nowadays when there are so many different frameworks, meta frameworks, and languages, and overall paths you can take. It's hard to even determine where to even start. And in this video, I'm going to break it all down for you guys by giving you three different paths you can take as a beginner level programmer starting web development, or even a intermediate level programmer looking to up their skills into the next level. And two of these three paths are related into building your own applications, maybe starting your own business, and one of the paths is related into you actually getting a job in the industry. And without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. And the first question we're going to tackle is, what even is web development? And in my opinion, web development can be broken basically into two different types of development, and it's developing web apps and developing progressive web apps. And overall, web development refers to the process of creating and maintaining websites or web applications. And it involves a variety of tasks, including web design, web content development, client side and server side scripting, and even network security configuration. And broadly speaking, web development can be categorized into two main types. And these two types are backend development and front-end development. And if backend development and front-end development are combined, it is called full stack development. And briefly speaking, front-end development, also known as client-side development, focuses on creating the user interface and user experience of a website or a web application. It involves technologies such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and these technologies combined create the front end of a website or a web app. Backend development, on the other hand, or server-side development, involves building and maintaining the server, database, and application logic that enable the front end to function. Common backend technologies include server-side programming languages like PHP, Python, Ruby, Java, and Node.js. Nowadays, even TypeScript and JavaScript, and also databases such as MySQL, Postgres, and MongoDB are used to retrieve and store data. And with these technologies combined, you can create web apps and progressive web apps. Web apps are software applications that run in the browser. Users can access them through a web browser like Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. On the other hand, progressive web apps, also known as PWAs, are a type of web application that incorporates features traditionally associated with native mobile apps. So basically creating mobile apps with these technologies. Now the question, of course, becomes what and how you should start learning these different types of technologies. And if you are starting in web development as a complete beginner, the first step is to start learning the basics. And the basics of web development are, of course, HTML and CSS, because these technologies are used to build websites. And my suggestion, if you are starting out as a complete beginner, is build a basic website using HTML and CSS. Try, for example, building a page where you tell about yourself. Do the structuring with HTML and try make it stylish with CSS. And after you got the basics down, or even at the same time, you should learn basic scripting with JavaScript. By this, I mean learn the basics of programming and functional programming, learn how you can loop through elements, learn the basics of different data structures such as lists and objects and stuff like that. And the reason you should learn these basic scripting such as loops and data structures is that you need to learn the most important methods of JavaScript. These methods include, for example, map, filter, and reduce. And once you have these down, I think you are ready to move forward. And once you are ready to move forward, these are the three paths that you can take. So as you guys can see, there is the one path here on the left side of the screen where you can build your own apps, maybe start a business or a startup. And then here on the right side, we have the path where you want to get a job at a company or something like that. And this might just be the most important picture of your entire life. And we can start going through this here from the left side. So if you want to build your own apps, or even if you want to get a job at like a startup and stuff like that, or you just want to learn how web apps work, I think you should go with the MERN stack. The MERN stack is such a powerful tech stack. You will learn the basics of REST APIs, backend development, frontend development, and you can build basically anything with the MERN stack. The MERN stack, of course, contains MongoDB as the database, Express in the backend, where you can write JavaScript and TypeScript in the backend, and React on the front end, and of course Node.js as the runtime. And then the other route, if you want to build your own apps, is a quite new stack with Next.js, Prisma, TypeScript, and React. And this tech stack is actually a serverless design. I think you should go with the app router version. And this tech stack is actually what I'm building my own startup with. And the reason for this, because the serverless infrastructure and the overall being of Next.js 14 with the app router makes it quite easy actually to build web apps nowadays and complete robust web apps, of course. And here I'm using MongoDB as the database and Prisma as the ORM. It's a incredibly powerful tech stack, and you can also build almost anything with this tech stack. But the one downside of it is that it is quite new, and therefore the job market, for example, for this tech stack is quite small still, but it might of course get bigger in the future. And then the third path here on the right side is actually getting a job at a company. And as you guys can see, the technologies used to actually get a job and building your own web apps are quite different. So on the backend side, if you want to get a job, I would learn Java or even like some C language, C Sharp or C++. But Java is probably the one that I would go for in the backend side because the job market is just so large compared when you're looking like the available jobs for Java developers compared to like Node.js Express developers. But the one common thing you see here is that all these frameworks have React on the front end right here as well. And of course, there are other front-end frameworks than React, for example, Angular, but I would also go for React just because even if you fail here to start your own business, you can try to apply for a front-end job, for example, and stuff like that. React is such a powerful front-end framework. It is easy to use, and the ecosystem and libraries for that are so powerful that I think there is no other framework that comes even close to the front-end development workflow than React. And once you have chosen your path here, it can be any of these paths. You should start learning by building projects. So the first step, of course, is to build a small project. Good examples of this are like a blog app or a to-do app, something where you can learn both front-end and back-end development, connecting a database, maybe even implementing authentication into your application, and getting the overall workflow working. After the small project, you have at least something to show in your resume, but let's be honest, a blog app isn't something that you really want to put into your resume. You want to build something bigger. And when building a bigger project, I think a one good metric for it is the time frame that it takes to build it. So for example, for the blog app here, you can build it in a few days or even like a weekend. A bigger project takes weeks or months to build. By this, I don't mean that you should go from a weekend project to a 6 month project, but take, for example, like a 2 or 3 week bigger project. And I've put in some examples here that you guys can build. So, for example, marketplace apps, some micro SaaS, social media platforms, or even e-commerce websites are great examples where you can learn a lot when building them. And the goals really to learn from these projects are database relations. This one's really important for any web application you're building, or even if you are applying for a job, you really want to handle database relations. The second one is building actually robust apps. By this, I mean that you need to keep in mind security and error handling. So the web applications or mobile applications you are building should not crash, even if there are some errors with the network or even some bugs in the code. And maybe one of the most important ones right here on this list is mastering CRUD operations. And CRUD operations, of course, mean any create, read, update, or delete operations. So again, this has quite a lot to do with the database relations here. So you can actually create, read, update, and delete data from the database and show it to the user on the front end. And last but not least, something you can also do is implement payments, subscriptions, and something like that with Stripe. This really gets you going with webhooks and other APIs, and you can even start monetizing your application with this. And what all these really come down to is that you really need to master REST APIs. So REST APIs are basically used for the application front end to communicate with the application backend. And yeah, that's basically it for this roadmap right here. Leave a like, comment down below what you want to see next. And if you like this type of content, consider subscribing to my channel as well. But this is basically it for this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace!